Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as was already mentioned several times this evening, we are facing effectively a wall, really, to us getting any way forward for any future facility projects in Worcester. As you've already mentioned, Mr. Chair, there really is no district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has benefited probably as much as we have, honestly, on all sides in terms of new buildings, but also in terms of the accelerated repair program. Also, as was mentioned at the last Mass School Building Authority meeting, there was a vote that was made to increase the amount per square foot that districts are reimbursed, which is obviously necessary. However, what that means is that the pot of money that MSB has, which is limited by Mass General Law, now is going to smaller numbers of places. At the same time, my understanding, Mr. Chair, is that there is substantial pressure being put on the MSBA to cover the inflationary costs of some of the buildings that we, for example, have already seen here in Doherty. It was $23 million. If that happens, if that effort succeeds, and there are some pretty powerful voices in the state legislature that are pushing for that, we then will see effectively even fewer things go forward. So we already didn't have burn coat go forward this year. I want to note to my colleagues that the other thing that we implicitly lost this year is every year the budget actually has a 5-year plan of what we were going to put forward for the accelerated repair programs. We're not putting forward a new roof for Wauwikis. We're not putting forward a new roof for Union Hill. Because we're not doing that this year, next year we won't put forward a new boiler for Gates Lane or a new boiler for Clark Street. Because of that, we won't put forward a new roof for Elm Park in 2025. And because of that, we won't put forward a new roof for UPCS and Canterbury in 2026. Accelerated repair programs are core to us being able to do anything. And that's without even getting into the question of what we're going to do about windows for Worcester East Middle School, which we have, I would argue, probably no hope of doing without state assistance. So we absolutely have got to get the accelerated repair program back. MSBA cannot simply do this by themselves. They don't have the money for it. There is no district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that is better in a position to say, we need all 3 things to happen, and we need it not to just be MSBA to try to have to figure it out from their limited pool of money. So I'm asking us to ask to the state delegation, but here's the thing, Mr. Chair. This can't just be that we send a letter to our delegation with this list of 3 items. Okay, this has to actually be a project that we as a school committee, and I'd ask Mr. Chair, the City Council, to embrace and actually sit down with our legislators. Each of us has relationships with them and say, we have to have this. We cannot do this by ourselves. And we've got the list of what those things are. They're across the city. Everybody's got skin in this game. We've got $23 million in Doherty in terms of inflationary costs that we've got to cover. Yes, we'd love for them to do it. The state is sitting on over $1 billion of ARPA funds still, which were designed to actually hit the places where the pandemic hit us. Right. This is one of those places. So, and my understanding is that when that was brought forward to the legislature, some of those same voices, Mr. Chair, said, oh, but that will never fly. Well, so somehow the city of Worcester is supposed to come up with the $23 million for the cost for the new Doherty. And in the meantime, we won't get a roof for Union Hill, and we won't get a new burn coat, and we won't get windows for Worcester East Middle. The other thing, Mr. Chair, that I'm going to suggest is that this is one where, while we have all 3, there are districts that have each of those 3. So there are districts across the state that also got no's this year for their new buildings. There are districts across the state that also had plans for accelerated repair for this coming year that aren't going to be able to submit them. And there are plenty of districts that now have millions of dollars in bills that they weren't expecting. So again, the motion is to bring this to the delegation in the form of a letter, but I am going to ask my colleagues and you, and frankly, all of our colleagues, including our students and our faculty and anyone else who not only would like a new burn coat, but would someday like other new elementary schools and roofs and boilers and windows, to work with us on this, because this is, as the superintendent said, one where we're actually going to need a full court press. We can't just sort of say, well, we sent you a letter and that needs to be it. The new legislative calendar started yesterday. This is the time for those bills to be filed. MASC and MASS and AFT and MTA have already put in a request in terms of FY24, which I was glad to see, but this is the time to make those requests as well. And we can't we can't let this one go. So I would say, Mr. Chair, that this is sort of my initial place for us to start on this. There probably are going to be other things that I will bring forward to ask my colleagues to work with us on, because I think that this is one where we really need to be beating down the doors of the state legislature for them to make some changes.